Well, welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I can only imagine that Jeannie has some phone connection problems, that her voice has not just jumped right in.
Well,
there she is, I think.
I was making the announcement. I have no idea. Anyway, so today is Recovery Wednesday.
Go for it.
Recovery Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2016. And their calling number is 516-418-5786. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions because that makes this your show. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. We're honored, delighted that you're here once again to share this space with us, to share these ideas with us, and to move forward the first century Aramaic process of forgiveness. Remembering that every device in the universe only operates when it's plugged into a proper power supply. Recovery is about recovering a proper power supply for your human life, for your physiology, for the operation of your mind, of your senses, of your perceptions. If we go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, he explains to us, although you can't tell it from the Greek translations, he explains to us that there is a gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain that are the first order of business for living a human life. They say to him, well, all this stuff you're teaching us, what's most important in this law you're talking about? And law here does not mean anything that the Greeks have told us that it's about the rule of a superior. The word law in Aramaic simply means the way things work, understanding how the eternal forces work and harmonizing with the eternal forces in which we live, move, and have our being. And so, in response to their question of what comes first, Yeshua gives a very specific answer that does not even start to come across in the Greek translations of the words. We're told by the Greeks that he said, well, you just love your neighbor. You love God just like you love yourself. And that answer is not even relative to what he said in his first century Aramaic language. What he said, and we'll give you the long form, is that you've got to recover your human life. You've got to live as a human being. You've got to power your mind with a proper power supply, and the gateway for having that power supply operational in Aramaic is the word that he used that the Greeks translated as the word love. And the word that represents that gateway is the word Rachma. So he doesn't say love your neighbor. He says have Rachma for the Creator and for your neighbor. And then he tells you why you want to do that. And that is in order to maintain self. Human perception has a quality to it. It can either be of poor quality or it can be of a rich, accurate quality. Poor quality perception is perception, any perception about anything, or what appears to be about anything, that's based in hostility or fear. If you want to destroy a human mind's ability to operate properly, disconnect it from its power supply, and then plug it into hostility or fear. And what you will get is errant perception that everybody who holds that errant perception will swear that they're seeing the world accurately. The truth is, if we're in hostility or fear, we're not seeing the world accurately. We're seeing the output of our own minds accurately based on the power supply that's running the system. So in essence, when Yeshua says Rachma, there are two things that Rachma, which is a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain, does. One, it supports you in maintaining your human life. It's the gateway for human life. And if you want to know what a human life is, you're not going to find, you could find 8 trillion words in any language you want, and you won't find words that describe love. But we do have an experiential definition for you, and that is hold a newborn child. When you hold a newborn, you get a direct experience of what human life is. And that's what's designed to fire and power our minds and our bodies into activity. You can't have health without that connection to love. You don't have a human life if hostility or fear is what's running your mind. And when hostility and fear are active, because Rachma, first law, has been lost, then the perceptual system of the mind is degraded. It gives us all kinds of crazy information that comes from inside of us, but it makes it look like the picture world we see makes it look like we're looking outside of us. And the attributes that we hold within, we're putting into our brain's image of others, and we're sure that somebody else has those attributes. The key in understanding, because you can't figure this out directly, the key in understanding is that Rachma is the gateway, keeps love conscious, active, and present in the human system, and provides a power supply for the human mind. If that's lost, if hostility or fear is active, then the human mind will take its own hostility and fear-based content and make pictures of somebody else and rail on and ravish someone else and insist that they must be the problem in one's life. But, of course, when you recognize that I'm the one who's feeling it, then sooner or later I got to grow up. And you'll notice, whatever it is you're feeling today that you're blaming Charlie or Harry or Bill or, Donald or Hillary or anybody else for, you'll notice that before you ever heard of any of those names, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you had experienced all of those same feelings. And 30 or 40 years ago, 50 years ago, if you're more than that, 60 years ago, you experienced all of those same feelings. But notice that you're making different pictures and you think it's about different people. But the truth is, every word you say out of hostility or fear reflects the contents of your mind. And you make pictures. Literally, the mind has a digital to analog converter, and we make pictures out of the content of our mind about those who we are pointing our perceptions at. And we're sure that they're the problem, and they're the one that it has the attributes that we're feeling. But sooner or later, you've got to recognize I'm the one who's feeling it, and it's about me. Yesterday, we spent our day talking about responsibility communication, a really awesome letter that a young man named David had written to his father several years ago. And shortly after he had come to Heartland to an intensive and done the responsibility communication and really taken the tool to heart and worked with utilizing the tool to be responsible for the contents of his own mind, which, as is normal in our culture, we've been taught to take the contents of our minds and make it about everybody else. And so we see a very powerful effort on the part of David in that letter. And if you weren't with us yesterday, you might want to go to the archives. And to do that, you go to www.whyagain.org. And you'll see a microphone and radio links. And if you click on that and go down the list, you'll see archives. And if you click on the archives, go to yesterday's date and give a listen to the reading of that letter. And then we were blessed and fortunate that David called in and shared a little bit about his mindset and what was going on for him. And his whole journey, he had just been through AA and a detox just before he came to Heartland. And his whole journey was that of recovery. And I really admire this young man. He's been involved in this work for about 19 years now. I've watched him consciously, purposely work through a ton of hostility and fear-based information over the years in relationship to his family, in relationship to his wife and his children, and just keep going for the gold. He just puts one foot in front of the other and does the next piece of work that it takes to be responsible for the contents of his mind based in hostility or fear and engage in the forgiveness process to remove that. And, the difference that we can make in one generation, a life based in a lot of hostility, a lot of fear, and then years of covering that with alcohol, and drugs, and then the choice to step into recovery, the choice to recover his human life is just so evident in that letter. And David, if you happen to be listening, and or if you're available to carry on with the conversation, that would be awesome. But if you happen to be listening, I just really applaud you and acknowledge you, having watched what you've done with your children, having been in touch with you continuously over the years as you're walking through and working through these issues and having new layers come up. It's just awesome to watch and to be a part of. In fact, I wish when I had my children that I had the tools on the level you've got them and were using them on the level that you're using them. That would have been a really fabulous gift to have had for myself. I didn't have them at that point. I was beginning to engage them, but certainly didn't have the understanding and the refinements that you have and the willingness to step through and do that work. And each person, the power of taking the tools and really using them. There's an awesome thought in the Course in Miracles that says millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do. And Yeshua, go back and listen to him 2,000 years ago, and he's speaking there as a physicist. He says, I have opened a door wide and nobody can close it. And each person that does another piece of work in a new arena and works through the hostility and fear-based mind opens a door wide, opens a door wide, opens a door wide. And the kinds of things that need to be dealt with, last week, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, I was talking about a book that I'd been perusing where this woman's talking about how in the Middle Ages that most families didn't even name their children until they were 6 years of age, avoided physical contact with them, did not touch them, did not hug them, did not connect or attach to them because the majority of them died. 4 out of 5 of them died before the age of 6. If a child made it to 6, then the child would be brought into the family and actually named at that point because they figured the child would be around and they wouldn't have to experience the pain of the loss of a child that they had that kind of connection with. I mean, you just think about how monumental that is. And recently, Jeannie and I have been watching a History Channel program on the fall of the Roman Empire, and it goes through Attila the Hun and Clarius and Hannibal, and when you look at what's in our genes, what's in our history, you watch the propensity, a way to treat women in the culture. And then you go back and there's a line in one of the sessions from the History Channel, and the Romans are taking down the what they call the barbarians. Anybody who wasn't Roman or Greek was a barbarian. Degrading words, utilizing degrading words right out of the chute for anybody that's not part of your culture. We listen to that in the political arena, and we see people who have a derogatory name for everybody that opposes them. And it's just that, I suspect, a fragment of genetic energy that comes from that Roman view and barbarians. But there's one case where they attack and beat this woman, a mother, and the 2 young daughters are maybe 8 and 10. And, one of the tools of war and the tools for destroying a people, for just literally wiping out a people, was to rape the women. And so this Roman general, just as a matter of course, when they're beating, literally whipping the mother of these 2 young girls, says to one of the soldiers, go take those 2 girls and make women of them. In other words, take them and rape them. And we look at people who today, it's still a part of the verbiage and part of the culture that rape is an acceptable thing. And I think that this is just another genetic issue that needs to be faced in order for this insanity to change in our culture. So, and they make another point, and my experience in working with people over the last almost 50 years is that my estimate is that probably 70% of people in this culture have been sexually abused. And they make the point as part of this documentary from the History Channel that when the gladiators were, put in their cells at night, not only were they physically abused, but sexually used and abused as well. And it's equal with men and women in this culture, in my experience, that 70% of both men and women have been sexually abused. And these are all things that, whether it's the child that is rejected and not named until the age of 5 or 6, to the sexual abuse of a man or a woman, and thinking that's just natural matter of course. And of course, if you're a powerful person, you have the right to do that. It's all part of those fragments of genetic thoughts that come from our history. And I think that's what led, and I'm not even sure who the philosopher was that said, those who refuse to review and look at their history are condemned to repeat it, because those genetic fragments simply come up. They become thoughts, they become words, they become behaviors, and words always precede behavior. And so to just begin to look at those things and have the willingness, as I'm acknowledging David for, to really look at so many issues at such a deep level and to engage in communicating responsibly, actually recognizing that the words that are being communicated to, in this case, his father, aren't about his father, but are about his perceptions of his father. And when we take ownership, what happens is, instead of, and remember our definition in this work of denial is, when I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of something inside of me. That's all I have to do. I just think or speak as though that made me mad or sad or afraid or hurt or whatever, and I dissociate from the root of my pain, that which truly makes me sad, mad, hurt, or afraid. When I can utilize responsibility language, when I can own that my hurt is surfacing, my anger, my sadness, my fear is surfacing, and I can do that with responsible language, then my language gives my mind permission to show me the parts of me that otherwise I dissociate from through denial. And when I see them, I'm empowered to change them. And we are here to support, ultimately, to be on the support team of every mind, heart, and being on the planet, so that any fragment of a thought, genetic or otherwise, any fragment of a word that implies that one is less than the true being they were created to be as love, or that anyone else is less than that. We're here to support the healing of those long-standing fragments of thoughts that cause people to do behaviors that are so abhorrent. And time for the wake-up. So we're here to support the wake-up. Jeannie, we didn't get to say anything to Dr. Tim yesterday. Is the young man with us?
He is. He's on and Gail's on, and we also have a caller.
Cool. Well, let's say hello to Dr. Tim.
Actually, our caller has disappeared.
Oh, okay. Well, let's say hello to Dr. Tim and see how the young man is.
I'm doing well,
Hi, Tim.
thank you. Hello.
Awesome.
I'm doing quite well. We had our support group last night, and the Cubs were playing in the 6th and do-or-die game of the World Series, so we only had 3 people there, plus me. We had a lovely evening, and we had another segment from JM talking about how you have 100% total responsibility for everything you experience, and that, there's so many ways in which that message from Way of Mastery, and he even referenced again Course in Miracles, is right in line with everything we talk about and the Reality Management Worksheet talks about, that everything begins with my internal choice, and it may be unconscious, it may be old energies resonating, but when I choose a thought or a behavior, that is an energetic message which brings more of the same and brings a response from the people in the world and the universe around me. So it was, I guess we ended up spending well over an hour, closer to an hour and a half, reading the material and then watching Yam talk about it in detail. And then we had our discussion, and as often happens when the support groups are smaller, the conversation gets a little bit more intense. So one or two people get a lot more in-depth work about whatever the triggers are for them. And one of the themes that came up last night was the idea that with my conscious logical mind, the tendency is, especially in this culture, I've been taught to rely so heavily on my conscious logical mind and figuring things out, that I want to know how this thing that happened in my life that isn't the way I wanted it to be. I got up this morning and I wanted everything to run smoothly and the car to run and me to go to these appointments, and then I start my day and it doesn't go the way I had planned. And then I want to engage my conscious logical mind and try and figure out, okay, what's the lesson in this for me, or what did I do wrong, or how is this related to my ancestry, or whatever. And the point we made over and over again that came up in Yam's work and that we made in our discussion is, that's not what's going to produce change for me. What's going to produce change for me is shifting my energy back into that loving space, trusting the process, realizing that if there's anything unlike this loving energy in my system, that's what I need to remove, take full responsibility for, and remove. I take responsibility for it even if it was generated through my bloodline by people I didn't even know. But it's in me now. I'm experiencing it now, so I can take full responsibility for it, apply the tools to it, and remove it. And if I do that, and if I practice focusing on that creative, loving energy, that, you know, the energy you talk about when you say hold a newborn, and then describe the energy there. And if I realize that's what's driving my existence physically, that's what's keeping my heart pumping and my food digesting, that's what gave rise to me in this physical dimension, that practice of focusing on that and extending that loving energy to myself and everyone I think of, and then actively working to use the tools to remove anything that's unlike love, that two-prong approach has transformed my life beyond what words can describe, in a direction of more loving, more creative, more pleasant, more joyful. And so that was our theme in our discussion last night, and that's what I have to offer for today.
Sounds fabulous. Right on track, and it's pretty awesome how this understanding is coming from more and more and more corners of the earth. It's pretty cool to see how that's happening. I actually got a call from someone the day before yesterday, and hold the space for this one. The folks who did the Live Aid concert to raise money for farmers back a couple of years ago with Willie Nelson and all. Apparently they're doing a concert for world peace. And why is this happening to me again work, the name of it and the forgiveness process has been put in the hat for one of the presenters at this Live Aid conference for world peace. So hold the space that falls in place and that we actually become part of that process. That would be pretty awesome. It's like, perhaps that signal that everything's ready to go to the next level.
Well, I will certainly hold that space and send thoughts and prayers in that direction.
Fabulous. Fabulous. All right, well, let's say hello to Gail and see how that young lady's doing. I suspect that Gail, having done her first 4-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop on Sunday, probably is in a new level of energy and energetic healing in her recovery. So, Gail, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Cool. Fabulous. Anything to share in particular? Anything on your mind today? How's the why workshop that you did on Sunday unfolding in your own personal process and your process with Scott?
Well, how it's unfolding with me is there's still some physical layers that are coming off. There's still some lung stuff and still some mucus and still some fatigue going on that level. The lady that had left the workshop on Sunday because she was dealing with some physical things that she couldn't stay there any longer, just had to go home and get some rest. She called me yesterday and was asking a lot of questions, and I encouraged her to call in because there were some questions that she had that I did not have the answer to or any exposure to. She's got some pretty severe health issues that are correlated to mercury exposure due to fillings in teeth. And
Right.
She's doing a lot of different kinds of detoxes. She knows about the Beamer and is familiar with that, but there was another machine that she was talking about, and I can't remember the name of it, and I'm not familiar with that, but she's gotten terrific results with it. And so I was hoping that she would call in today too and ask you those questions. And we're going to be moving forward with the support group that was started on Thursday, and I'm right there with Dr. Tim about the smaller groups. We've had 3 and 2 people there. And it seems like the smaller groups, and I've experienced this in the 12-step arena as well, the smaller groups seem to go deeper because the individual attention and, of course, the confidentiality and trust of the people that are in the group. So there was some pretty big, deep breakthroughs last Thursday at the one group, and then looking forward to having the same thing going on at the Sunday group as well that's being started this week.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, delighted that you're doing what you're doing and looking forward to watching how it all unfolds.
Absolutely, and thank you for allowing me to share and take the whole hour on Monday. So that was great. That kind of attention and support was very much appreciated. And there's a circuit speaker, or there was a circuit speaker. His name was Pastor M in the 12-step world, and he's 7 foot tall, or he was 7 foot tall. He's passed away since then, and he used to pass on this phrase that he got from his grand sponsor. His grand sponsor was a guy named Chuck C., who always used to say, I'm grateful, I'm so grateful I can't see. And, of course, regulatory speech in that phrase is less than desired, but I understand what he says, what he means when he says that, because what he's saying in that is being so grateful that tears are coming into my eyes. And there has been several times since Sunday, or even before Sunday, just the gratitude of being able to have knowledge of this work, being able to implement this work, getting results from doing this work, and being able to take it to the next level and be able to teach that work. And when Ed has talked about this particular phrase that he got from his grand sponsor, he became a pastor about 18 years of sobriety. To the Midwest. He was originally out in California and came back to the Midwest, went to seminary, became a pastor, was a pastor of 2 churches. And when he was driving from one church to the other church on a Sunday, he had to pull over under this tree and just had tears of joy and bliss and gratitude. And he finally understood what it meant to be so grateful you can't see. So I changed that to I'm grateful beyond words. And so anyway, that's where I'm at with all this.
I understand, and I'm right there with you. It's beyond anything I could have imagined in my life prior to acquiring these tools to understand and be part of bringing this forward into the world. It's just I quite often stop and think, what did I ever do to deserve this? So I'm right there with you. Well, Jeannie, is there anything happening in the chat room or anybody with a hand up in the phone queue that we can chat with?
Nope, it's all quiet.
There is the space if there are any other questions on the letter. You know, that letter yesterday was really the beginning of Recovery Wednesday. We did it on Tuesday, but just the whole idea of addressing the addictions that cover pain and the tools for directly accessing that pain, which of course temporarily intensifies it, but then with direct access, the ability to remove those energetic patterns is quite an awesome thing. So if you have a question about yesterday's letter or any way that we can support you with any of the tools, if you haven't accessed the forgiveness processes yet, we invite you to go to our website, www.whyagain.org. And if you click the word Start Here, the first two words in the beginning of the page, that will take you through a whole series of links that will introduce you to and walk you through the forgiveness process, including at least, I forget now how many, 17 or 18 radio shows where either Dr. Tim or Jeannie or myself have walked somebody through step-by-step wake-up sheet process. And we're delighted and honored to be here to support you and answer questions about that. I'd like to acknowledge Susan Darnell in Wilmington, North Carolina. She's just finishing up her, I think it's her 4th Laws of Living class now. And she's already got a quorum of people for her next class. So she's looking at, perhaps she was hesitating, as I understood it, to do the class through the holidays. But looking like probably she's going to start one before the holidays kick in and perhaps take some time off. But it's such a powerful time to be doing one's work when the family dynamics of holiday time come around and such. So just acknowledgments and accolades to you. And the first week in March, actually the last of February and the first week of March, we will be at Unity in Wilmington, North Carolina, doing a week of free workshops. And then we'll be stepping into, Jeannie's going to do a 4-day Women Healing Women. We're going to do a 9-day intuitive development, and we're waiting for some feedback as to whether or not we do another Why Is This Happening to Me Again, or perhaps do a Course in Miracles 9-day intensive, which we haven't done for a while. We've actually rented a 7-bedroom house right on the ocean in Oak Island, about an hour south of Wilmington, starting the first week in March. So it's going to be an absolutely beautiful, awesome space to walk out the front door and be right on the beach and be ready to go to work with a community of people who's really about doing their work. So if you're interested in participating in that, let us know. Jeannie will start out, I don't have the date, but Jeannie has, for a 4-day Women Healing Women, and then we'll step into the 9-day intuitive development. So Jeannie, what is the date that the 4-day starts?
It starts on March the 9th. It's a Thursday. It goes Thursday to Sunday. And then I had actually received an email, and I told her that I would have to get back to her whether you were going to pull the intuitive development up behind the women's 4-day or if you were going to still be on March the 17th.
Right. We'll look at that. We'll look at the schedule and see how we're going to put that together.
So just watch the website because we'll be putting changes and things up there on that. And we do have 2 hands up.
Oh, great. Well, let's say hello. One of the other things that I'm thinking about is perhaps plugging in a 4-day codependence to interdependence as well in that time frame. So it's kind of wide open as to how that all unfolds as yet. So anyway, let's talk to our callers, Jeannie.
Okay, both of them are area code 910. So the first one is 910-616. You're on the air. Who do we have?
Hi, that's me. I'm Jill from Wilmington, and I'm sitting
Hey there,
outside.
young lady. Welcome.
Hi. I am just graduating from Susan's Laws of Living course 2 and looking at trying to do it again, but I'm looking forward to you guys coming here. I'm excited to hear about the 4-day intensives. I think that suits my schedule a little better, so I was happy to hear you might be adding another 4-day. That's exciting. Looking forward to it. But I called you because I'm in the middle of a worksheet and stuck, a wake-up sheet.
Okay.
So this happens to me quite often. This time I got stuck at the goal, and then I went off on a tangent with, I was listening to the show yesterday, and you mentioned the Hydra effect, and I feel like I'm working on a Hydra. So I think my tangent, but do you want to hear the worksheet that I started, or?
Well, first of all, let me just share that, for me personally, whenever I do worksheets, I always have a stack of at least a dozen blanks with me. And each time I touch one of those subtle, things that I can trail off into, I start the next worksheet. I'm working away at this, this issue that's presenting and in my face at this moment, and all of a sudden I see how that issue applies to, something that perhaps happened to me 10 years ago or yesterday. And so rather than going off on a rabbit trail, I'll just take a second worksheet, and whatever points are relevant, I might see that I had the same goal for my relationship with X yesterday, and so I'll put whoever that person is in number 1C, and I'll put the goal in so that I've got the start of the next worksheet, and then I go back and stay on track with my primary one. So that's the way that I approach it, and that way I complete the worksheet that I'm working on. And I might have, there's one radio show that we did with Magda, who's been on the show several times over the years, and it's in the archives of radio shows. It's actually, I think, the second one in the list. And we started out with a single issue, and by the time she was finished, she had 17 worksheets to do. She'd uncovered 17 different pieces of her own puzzle, and that's why I always keep a stack and stay on track with the one I'm working on, but make notes on the insights that I get or the subtle things that come up that, I normally wouldn't pay attention to. That's one of the beautiful things about doing the worksheet in writing is that I get to pay attention to things that otherwise my mind would tend to ignore. So let's see if we can help you with where your questions are at, what's happening.
Yeah, that's very helpful, actually, to know that I can start several worksheets at one time. I end up with little notes everywhere, and then I'm more confused, really, because I don't know what to do with my notes.
Right.
So,
yeah, start worksheets with everything that comes up that you're going to do more work on.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you. So the situation that I was doing a worksheet on this morning has to do with me and my son. He is 7, and he resonated rage in me this morning. And so my worksheet is, I was fearful because I was expecting this behavior that ignites my rage. So I was expecting, my thought was that he's going to be himself and I will lose my temper. And then I got lost on what the goal would be. I didn't know what my goal was, to stay calm. But then it tangented me to that I try to walk on eggshells with him to keep him from getting angry, unreasonable, critical, belligerent. And what I think
So before you go further, I'd write down all those words. I'd write down all those words as feelings in the successive worksheets. Angry, belligerent, belittled.
Okay. And so the walking on eggshells behavior that I do is something I've done for a long, long time. And then the cycle is, then I feel resentful because nothing I do is right. I still get an angry person no matter what. And it's not a healthy dynamic between myself and my child either.
Right. Well, the question I'd ask myself is, 8 years ago, did I know this dynamic of thinking I need to walk on eggshells in order to maintain peace or whatever it is?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay. So we know that your son then is just a screen you project that on, and it's an issue that you really want to be working with. Were you on the show yesterday?
I listened yesterday, yes.
Great.
It was
So one of the things I'd suggest doing, I'd suggest going to the Why Again website and downloading that letter.
Yep.
And I would follow the format of that letter and write a letter to my son that moves in the direction of responsibility, kind of following the format that David did, which is the 7-step responsibility communication process that we teach. And you might find that useful in the process. And it sounds like there are a myriad of goals involved around this whole issue. One of the primary goals I would say, or I hear you speaking about, and maybe you could just make a note of these individual goals if they resonate for you. One of them would be to be able to support your son living as the presence of love.
Yes.
So I jot that goal down. That'll be a really important one to cancel. And then the reflection of that is, I want to be able to live as love. That same goal for yourself. And as you breathe, and just momentarily, I cancel my need to live as the presence of love. Let's just start right in the middle of that just for a second. And just do that. I cancel my need to live as the presence of love with my son.
I cancel my need to live as the presence of love with my son.
Okay, what just happened? Where did you just go?
I'm holding my breath because I'm crying because my first thought is that I fail.
Okay. So then that would indicate a goal where I want to be totally successful at this. And then, just kind of for the sake of time, as you write that goal down, just for this moment, I cancel my need to be totally successful at maintaining a space of love with my son. And where does your mind go as you do that?
Cancel my need to be totally successful at living as love in the presence of my son, or something to that effect. It's actually a little relief.
And if you were to just stop and think about it, can you remember the first time that you felt like if you only did it right, then other people would be happy? Are you breathing?
I am.
Okay, good.
Well, that was my role in my family. I'm the oldest, and I'm the good girl.
Oh. And so it was your job to maintain peace and make sure everybody was peaceful? Oh, wow.
Yes.
What a load that is, especially if you come from a family that has some hostility and fear-based dynamics. Well, that sounds like a 77 times 70 worksheet issue right there.
I've been doing some on that, so maybe I'm down about 10, but I still have a ways to go.
Good. And, it sounds like some work around self-acceptance when your mind judges you as not being perfect would also be useful.
I'm writing this down. Okay.
Just on an intuitive level, where's your relationship with where's your relationship at with your son's father?
He is deceased.
And where is all that at for you?
Actually, well, he passed away after my son was born. My son was 10 days old, and that anniversary is coming up this month. I've done a ton of grief work, and I was present for as much of it as I could. I made a promise to myself that I would be.
Right.
And I have done that. But, here I am today.
Well, when you recognize how long on planet Earth people have been dying and people experiencing pain and loss over those deaths, it's an issue that doesn't end quickly for anybody. It's a huge, huge piece of work to do, and will probably be a recurrent piece of work for you for years.
Yes, I think so. I agree, and it's different all the time too. It's never the same. So I definitely circle around to it, and not just at this time of year, but other times.
Right.
When there is conflict with my son, it certainly brings up feelings I have towards my late husband. Some resentment that he left me here by myself with this. And he goes on a prescription medication, so there's addictions and issues with that.
Right.
On his family as well as mine.
Have you done any worksheets on canceling your need for him to be there with you, raising your son?
I have, but I think it's I feel like that it's gone from rage to resentment, which is positive. Maybe
that's a movement. Awesome.
And I don't. I think I have let go of quite a bit of that, to be honest. In fact, that hasn't come to mind in these latest scenarios with my son at all until I just mentioned it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's good. I'm glad you even noticed that.
Yeah, it's a nice marker in your work. What about the reverse the projection about your desire to be perfect so that your son will always be happy? What about your desire for your deceased husband to have been free of addiction, to have lived beyond his addiction? Have you done any particular work in that arena?
No, that's interesting. I hadn't. I hadn't even thought much about it.
Because
yeah.
It's the same issue as, if only he had, then I would. And now it's if only I could, then my son would.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of coming from the same files in the mind when you look at it that way. And recognizing that, you get the opportunity to move through the next layer.
Yes. There's a lot of those. Now that you said that, there's a ton of if only blank, then everything would be blank, or then I would be blank. There's a whole bunch of that now that I can think of.
So I suspect that what Yeshua would say at this moment is, so there's your 77 times 70 work to do.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's huge. I mean, it's monumental. And I acknowledge you for having the courage to go there, to look, and to deal with that. I mean, you're opening a huge space for all people who've had loss in their lives to start to move through it. And that's a pretty rare piece of work for people to do.
Thank you.
So I acknowledge you for that. Yeah, that's I mean, doesn't get much bigger than that.
Thank you. This has been very, very helpful. I'm sure I'll call back as soon as I get confused again, which might be tomorrow.
Well, remember that confusion is a part of the healing process. You're not going to work through things without confusion coming forward, because when you're bringing in new levels of understanding from the being level of life, and those energetic patterns are mixed in the mind with all of the thoughts that come from the genetics and the non-being mind, when those two energies mix, the result is confusion. That's just a step in the process, and a lot of people resist that confusion, but when your confusion is up, that's when you want to keep pouring the active presence of love into your mind so that you can keep working through those levels and just accept and be with the confusion. It's an inevitable part of the process. It also is a reflection of, when you hit some of those big core issues and start to move them, that confusion is a reflection of the number of generations that this kind of issue has been going on, and the fact that you're allowing those things to surface that, you know, perhaps in your bloodline you're the first one ever who said, I'm going to look at this stuff and I'm going to work through it, and in particular I'm going to work through it in relationship to my son so that my son doesn't have to live this out. I mean, that's monumental. And just being aware that confusion is a step in the process, and it is a desirable step. Without it, healing isn't going to be occurring.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. That helped me tremendously.
Awesome. Delighted.
I'm in a huge state of confusion in everything, in every relationship. I do, and perfect. Thank you.
And remember, that's one of the signals of healing in process. You know, there's three levels that healing occurs on simultaneously. There's the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And remember, the symptoms of healing on a physical level are any kind of physical symptom I've ever had and low energy. On a mental level, it's any kind of negative thought that I've ever had and confusion. On an emotional level, it's any kind of negative feeling I've ever had and depression. That's what healing looks like. It's identical to the symptoms of disease. And so allowing yourself, you know, to keep connecting to your breath and to keep connecting to the active presence of love when those things occur is what will accelerate you through the process. And it's the very thing that so many people, and I say this from my own experience, I can remember back in the early days of developing this work and going, you know, what the hell is going on here? I'm doing all the right things, and here I am in more of a mess than I was yesterday. And when I heard myself saying those words, it's like, that's it. I've been doing more of the right things. I'm becoming more vital. I can now look at things that I couldn't look at yesterday. I got it. But, if we don't understand that, then because things look like more of a mess when we open up, it's kind of like spring cleaning. The house looks pretty good. We've kept it fairly good, but now we're doing spring cleaning, and it's a disaster. But the disaster is what leads to the clean house in the end.
Okay.
So you're right on track.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Delighted and honored. Glad to be on the team, glad to be of support.
Same here.
Hey, and any time that we can be of support, we are just honored and delighted for you to pick up the phone and ask the questions, and the questions become the gift to absolutely everybody. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, blessings.
You too.
All right, take care. All right, well, we're down to about a minute and a half or so. So, Jeannie, do we have anything else? Anything happening in the chat room to address?
We do have another caller. So it's 910-547.
910.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you loud and clear, young lady. How are you? I know who
beautiful.
this is.
That was my child. That was one of my laws of living, Miss Jill. I'm so proud of her. This is Susan from North Carolina, Wilmington. Yeah, we
nice
only
work,
have
young
a few
lady.
minutes. Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've got about a minute and a half,
I think I processed with her. Yeah, actually, I think I processed with her. But anyway, I was just going to share that my son is in a situation where he's got an ultimatum, either marry his girlfriend or she's going to take the baby and move out. And
Wow.
So I remember my father, the one thing he did that I hated the most, when I'm backed up in a corner I do, is threaten. So my son is living the bloodline of threat. So
Right.
I got some work to do, I'm thinking, around cleaning up. And I just wanted some input from you guys.
Well, my thought would be that let's perhaps open the show with that tomorrow, because we're down to the last 45 seconds or so. But in the meantime, we'll invite everybody in the community to be in the space of support for both he and his girlfriend community, to be in the space of support for both he and his girlfriend to follow the best guidance possible for what it is that they do, and for your grandson to be totally and completely taken care of in that whole process.